Hi everyone! Now we would like to present our presentation about structural analysis of the rescue novel by Joseph Conrad. But first, let me introduce our group members. My name is Siti Rohani and my group members consist of Celine Sekar N.P.O, Dheas Adam, and Nur Fadila Rachmadita. Okay, let's move to the discussion. First, we will discuss how the intrinsic elements of Joseph Conrad's The Rescue support the story of the novel. This part contains theme, point of view, plot, character and characterization, setting, conflict, and message in the rescue novel. The intrinsic analysis of the elements of the rescue confirms the importance of these elements in building and supporting the story. Theme refers to the main ideas or moral of the story. Sometimes this main idea or moral stated directly, and sometimes the reader has to think about the main idea. In the most literary works, there could be more than one theme. Novels, especially, are long enough that different readers could pick up on different thematic ideas throughout. The prose entitled The Rescue by Joseph Conrad has a theme that is, other than pointing out positive aspects, Joseph Conrad had also described the situation in the area of Malay archipelago. He pointed out the colonialism that happened there and the impact which colonizers brought upon the colonized country. Point of view. The point of view of The Rescue is omniscient third person. Narrator is not the character in the story but knows all the character's thoughts and feelings. Here is one example of the quotation that shows the point of view in the story. In this quote, the narrator knows the character's feeling and used pronoun he. The narrator says that Shaw pondered over his hometown and thought about his son he had never seen. Readers are never shown what the character is thinking outside or their feeling, but readers are given more knowledge of supporting characters through the omniscient narrator. Plot. Plot is the literary element that describes the structure of a story. It shows arrangement of events and actions within a story. There are 5 types of plot. First is exposition. This part is when the main character is introduced and also the introduction of the problem in the story. Here are some quotations that support the action. From the quotations, we can see that there is an adventurer who sailed in the Malay archipelago, namely Captain Tom Lingard, or nicknamed Red-Eyed Tom by his fellow. He wants to help his friends Hasim to get his land back. Second is rising action. This part is where the tension is starting to build up and the conflict of the story is introduced, which will eventually lead to climax. These quotations show the rising action of the story. The quotations tell that in his mission to help his friend Hasim, Lingard found the stranded yacht full of rich white people in an area where there are 2 dangerous native tribes are residing. He offered them a temporary place to stay in his brig, but they refused. There, he met a married woman named Edith Turner, and he slowly falls in love with her. Mr. Turner and Mr. De Alcázar got kidnapped by the natives, and Lingard decided to rescue them. Third is climax. Climax is the part where the characters face their problem and find a way to solve it, and it also called the turning point where the characters may or may not fail at their attempt in solving their conflicts. These quotations show the climax of the story. The quotations tell that Lingard took Edith to save her husband. Mr. Turner was set free, but only temporarily. Lingard negotiates Mr. Turner and Mr. De Alcázar freedom with Damon. The negotiation succeeded. Hasim and Jafar were attacked by Tenga. Even though Jafar managed to escape, he almost died from a hit from debris around him. 4 is falling action. Falling action is the part where the characters have found the way to solve their problems, but their problems are not finished yet. Here are some quotations that will point the falling action in the story. The quotations tell that Jorgensen believed that Edith could deliver Lingard's ring to its owner, but Edith doubted that Jorgensen is a nice person, so she didn't deliver the ring. Lingard sent a letter to Edith for a meetup. And the last is resolution. Resolution is the part where the conflicts are solved, or in another word, the ending of the story. Here are some quotations that show the final result of the story. These quotations tell that Hasim and Jafir died in the end. Edith blamed herself for not delivering Lingard's ring to him. Edith and Lingard's chemistry fell out as they both went their own separate ways.
Character and characterization. First, we need to learn what is characterization. Characterization is a description of a distinctive nature or a feature of someone or something. In this part, we will analyze the character in the rescue novel. First, Captain Tom Lingard. Captain Tom Lingard is the main character of this story. The narrator described that Lingard is the owner and the master of the brig, and the narrator thought that Lingard loved his brig as much as a man loves for a woman. As you can see here, the first quote that we can find out that Lingard is a very difficult person to trust in others. Now, for the second quote, as you can see here, this is a dialogue between Lingard and his brig crew, so that Lingard is very difficult to trust others, including his men. Now, to the next quote is the third quote. We know that Lingard was very experienced and knew the ins and outs of Borneo Island, even though the instruction given by Carter was unclear. Here's the quote. And for the fourth quote, Lingard is very confident. Lingard assured Carter by saying that there were no native people who did not know him and said Carter was lucky to meet him. For the next character we gonna analyze is Miss Trevor. Edith Trevor, or she called Miss Trevor, wife. She is the main character of this story. The narrator described Miss Trevor appearance that she was tall, had a bright skin, smooth and white eyebrow, a wavy pale hair. From the fifth quote, as you can see here, is a dialogue between Mr. De Alenter and Miss Trevor, and we can know Miss Trevor had a liking for Captain Tom Lingard since their first meeting. This happened when Lingard came into Mr. Trevor's ship, and there Miss Trevor and Captain Tom Lingard first met. Also, in this novel, there's a lot of character like Pata Hasim, Mr. Travers, Jurgensen, Shaw, Mr. De Alenter, Jafir, Imada, Belarab, Tenga, Sali, Kasab, and Serang, or his other name Haji Wasu.
Setting. Setting includes the time, location, and everything in which a story takes place and indicates the main backdrop and mood for a story. The first, setting of time. Setting of time in the rescue novel is during the First World War, and it's when the Dutch colonial period in Indonesia, especially in the Malay archipelago. That period was around 19 and 18. Here are the quotations that show the time. From the first quote, we can know that Conrad stopped making the rescue novel in 1898 and resumed it again in 1918. He referenced one of his characters, the Ilanons, from the real Philippines time, which is the Iranon or Ilanon. They are also real pirates in the 19th century. In the second quote, we can know that the Dutch had colonized the Malay archipelago since 1820. The Dutch determined that the territory was theirs. From the third quote, that is the dialogue between Hasim and Lingard, we can find out the Dutch took native people's land and colonized in the region. It was said by Hasim that the Dutch steal their land. And in the second is setting of place. Setting of place in the rescue novel is in Malay archipelago. Most of the story in this novel takes place on Captain Tom Lingard brig and also on other ships at sea around the Malay archipelago. Here are the quotations that show the place. From the first quote, Conrad indirectly said that his possession was at the Karimata Island in the Malay archipelago and was on Lingard brig. Lingard and his men also sailed to the shore of refuge seas in the Malay archipelago, while in the second quote, the setting takes place in New Guinea coast, where Lingard meet Patah Hasim for the first time. From the third quote, we can know that the situation takes place on Mr. Travers' yacht. Mr. Travers angrily told Lingard to leave his ship. The next, setting of situation or atmosphere. Setting of situation in the rescue novel is most of it about the atmosphere of being at adventure at sea. Here are some quotations that show the atmosphere of the story. From the first quote, we can feel the fear experienced by the natives when facing a war against Lingard, who has a lot of war equipment, and his expertise in fighting, and supported by the narrator, who described the tense atmosphere around the consequence of the war. While in the second quote, we can feel the tense situation for a sailor on a brig when facing a storm at sea. Lingard and his men were used to this situation and were expert at it. Sometimes the atmosphere in this novel also becomes very tense on land. It is as if we were brought into a war situation between native and foreigner. Next, conflict. In Conrad the rescue novel, there are many conflicts. The type of internal conflict is man versus self, whereas the type of the external conflict is man versus nature and man versus society. Internal conflict. An internal conflict is the struggle occurring within a character's mind. Things such as character fuse for but can quit rich. In this novel, the internal conflict is man versus self. Here is the quotation that show the conflict. This quotation show that character, Edith Turner, was having a doubt on whether to tell her husband about the danger of staying on that yacht any longer. In the end, she managed to convince herself that it is the right thing. External conflict. External conflict refers to conflict between one character and another or a group character. It can also be between a character and more abstract force. In this novel, the external conflict is man versus nature and man versus man. Here are some quotations that show the conflict. From the first quote, we can know that the conflict is about man versus society. At that time, the natives didn't like white people because they had taken their land. There is a Papuan who tried to kill Lingard because he is a white man. And because of that, Lingard's men fought back. Lingard and his men were strong and very reliable in fighting, and also have weapons so that the natives was killed by them. The other natives there were very afraid of it and ran away from that place. From the second quote, we can know that the conflict is about man versus nature. Lingard and his brave grew faced with the bad weather when they were in the island. They tried too hard to face the storm and tried to balance the brig from sinking. And finally, they managed to fight the storm after a while.
The moral messages in the story are be kind, helpful and loyal to others, be yourself and don't be afraid to speak your mind, and also making friends are better than making enemies. In the last point, I will explain about the extrinsic elements in Conrad's story. The first one is post-coloniality, a term used to understand former colonialized society. So it refers to objects before and at the time of colonialism. In the rescue novel, Indonesia was in the colonial period. There are some lines that shows colonialism in the story. The first quote in page 14 shows that during the colonial period, native people were underrated by white people. Shaw was proud of himself for being a white man and felt superior compared to the natives. He felt that he was much needed on the brig compared to the natives. And in the second quote in page 33 shows that Lingard indirectly denigrated the natives. He prided himself on his race by saying that he was a white man inside and out, and as if there was nothing better than him. He also said that what he can't do, other people also can do, including the natives. And there are many more texts in the story that shows white men in the colonialism era is considered more superior and often looked down and even abused those who came from the lower class. Next is the gender and feminism. In the colonialism era, people think that women can't do anything by their own, so they are expected to stay at home, be a wife and mother, and fulfill their husband's needs. It is an issue where women are always treated unfairly and always looked down on. Conrad also mentions this issue in his story. In the first quote of Shaw's dialogue in page 33, at that time, women were looked down on by men. Shaw shows the attitude that he doesn't like women because he considers that women were always causing trouble. This is one of the issues that feminists want to erase from people's mind, especially men. They always look down on women and thought badly about them. And the second quote in page 110 implies that humans tend to see the value of other humans from their usefulness. Both male and female do it, because basically humans are opportunist creatures. In this quote, the male sees the female as his trophy, where he could boost his ego to others by using her status. There are more messages that Conrad's inserted about genderization, especially feminism in colonialism era, in his story. And the last is about identity, which is the identification of an individual or a group which embeds on them. In this part, I will mention and explain some of the identities of the natives that Conrad used in his novel, The Rescue. The first quote in page 53 shows that Conrad mentioned the Wajo or Wajok tribe. Wajo tribe is one of the tribes in Indonesia from South Sulawesi that uses Bahasa Bugis. The second quote in page 173 mentions one of Indonesia's traditional weapon, which is the kris, that's now mainly used for ritual, ceremonial, and cultural purposes. And the last quote in page 162 mentions the Ilanun or Iranun tribe. Iranun or Iranun tribe is one of the tribes in Philippines. In the 90s, the Iranuns are called the Iranun pirates. This ends our presentation about Joseph Conrad's work, The Rescue. We apologize if we made any mistake in this video, and thank you for watching.